This is MC Fireside Chats, a weekly show devoted to the outdoor hospitality industry, hosted by Brian Searl and Cara Csizmadia. You'll hear from special guests that focus on topics to help your business succeed, all backed by Modern Campground, the most innovative news source in the industry.
Welcome, everybody, to another episode of MC Fireside Chats. My name is Brian Searl with Insider Perks, here as always with Cara Csizmadia from the Canadian Camping and RV Council. Normally we have Angela Hylton here, who's the editor-in-chief of Modern Campground, but she is currently traveling in Arizona, actually at the Quartzsite RV show. Doesn't have good enough signal there, so we couldn't get her on the show today, but super excited to obviously have her back next week. So we've got a lot of different things we're going to do today. We've been starting these themed shows, and so the fourth week of every month we're going to kind of do a new show that's focused on the RV industry and outdoor recreation as a whole. So we've got a lot of guests involved there, and then we've got Mr. Sam Shanley, who's going to start us off today in a second. Sam was originally booked as a guest before we decided to change everything up on him and just screw with all this time and his opportunity to talk about his park. We're going to make sure that he gives enough time to talk about that today. So we're super excited to have Sam here. He owns a glamping destination in Covert, South Haven, Michigan. But let's just talk about who we have on the show, and then we'll turn it over to Sam, and he can tell us a little bit about what he's got going on. So we've got Phil Ingrassia from the RVDA of America. I feel like I have to say that, even though it's not of America, because we also have, who is having internet issues, Eleanore Hamm from RVDA of Canada, who's going to join us. So Phil is at NTB Stag in Las Vegas, right, Phil?
That is correct.
All right, and then we Eleanore Hamm's in her office, and Shane's in her office, and Cara's in her office. I feel like we should all strive to be as good as Phil with our backgrounds and our traveling for these shows. But and then we're super excited to have Patrice and Kevin here as well, who are the hosts of RV There Yet, which is a new TV series that started airing in January on Discovery Channel. So we're super excited to talk to them about kind of their experiences. They said we were talking before the show, they were at the Florida RV Super Show and some different things like that. And of course, we want to hear about their series and all that kind of cool stuff that they have going on. So, but let's kick it off with Sam here. Sam, do you want to just introduce yourself? Tell us a little bit about what you have going on there in Michigan.
Yeah, happy to. Hi, everybody. My name is Sam Shanley. Last year, I started a new business, Off-Map Glamping, with my co-founder and my friend from college, Mike Doyle, who is not here today. And so I am actually based out of Chicago. I don't know if anybody can see this, but probably not through the glare, but this is scenic in Chicago. But our business itself is a couple hours out of here. So about 2-hour drive from Chicago in South Haven, Michigan. And so we just opened Off-Map Glamping. It's a new glamping resort. So we have no RVs. So for anybody here to hear about RVs.
Perfect, right?
Perfect. Yeah, we're a change of pace. So our that's our website there, stayoffmap.com, if you guys want to look us up. But so this is our first year. We're going into our second. And so our business model is really camping for kind of two groups of people, either folks who are interested in having a kind of an outdoor experience or an outdoor adventure, but haven't camped before, are looking to dip their toe in the water, but maybe not fully commit yet. And so we get a lot of folks with us who have never camped before, and this is kind of a good entry point for them. And then we do get a lot of folks who have camped before, and they're kind of experienced, almost professional campers, and they're just looking for a weekend to do it with a little bit more luxury. They don't have to pack out, they don't have to pack in, just kind of show up and everything's ready. So we've got last year we had a dozen safari tents. This year we'll be going to 20 tents. And so they're all furnished. They've got king beds in them, wood burning stoves, furniture.
They're super nice.
Yeah, it's a very nice product. Yeah. And so we serve breakfast on site, and then we've got, a 75-acre property that some folks are just looking to hang out on site all day. And so they'll do walks through the woods, or we've got a blackberry orchard, and we've got a blueberry orchard. And so some folks will pick berries, which are in season, or they'll just hang out, and then we do fires in the evening. But then we're also between a couple of big vacation towns, South Haven, Michigan, and Saugatuck, Michigan, are big tourist destinations. They've got beaches and wineries and more bars than anybody knows what to do with. And so we get a lot of customers who just are looking for basically a hotel while they stay in a vacation town, but figured, why stay in a Holiday Inn when I can go glamping instead? So that's kind of the nuts and bolts of us. like I said, we're about to open our second year here, and we'll run kind of June through the end of October. So yeah, that's the nuts and bolts of us. Happy to kind of talk more about any specifics that folks might find interesting.
So what does the... Go ahead, Cara, please. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask about kind of how things were launched, considering the pandemic timing and all of that. Were you guys down the road partially when all of that stuff happened?
Yeah, so we started working on this in January 2020, and then we were about 2 days from signing on a property, and then the pandemic hit and they shut everything, and we were like, oh God, is this the worst idea ever? And I think, as anybody in the camping industry now knows, no, we should have sprinted ahead, because that would have been the absolute best. But nobody knew anything, in hindsight's 2020, and so we just didn't do anything for 3 months. Well, we were like, is this the worst time to ever start a travel business? So in hindsight, I wish we'd run a little bit faster, and then during that period, but there was no, I mean, everybody knows there was no way to know back then what was going to happen. So yeah, we took a pause there, and then by the time we unpaused, the place we're working on was no longer available, and so we refocused, and we ultimately found a new piece of property here in Michigan, and it's been great. I think we've really benefited, as everybody else in the outdoor industry can attest. People aren't trying to fly a lot of places. City centers are closed, and so you're not going to go to Manhattan for a vacation, or pick your city of choice. And so outdoor things have gotten a lot of leverage from that. So from that perspective, it's been really great for us.
Yeah, I bet. I think nearly doubling your capacity is a good testament to your success in the first year.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it went really well. So we're really excited for year 2, especially when we know how to do things better.
Sam, did you have a lot of? Sam, did you have a lot of? Did you have a lot of bureaucratic red tape to get through to get your business going, or was that pretty smooth in Michigan?
So we would have. So this is actually the 5th property that we went under contract at. And every property has its own foibles. Some of them are legal and zoning. Some of them are regulatory. Sometimes you find out you're in the floodplain and there's nothing you can do. We lucked out because there are 2 tiny townships in the state of Michigan that do not have zoning, and we are in one of them. So we didn't know that when we first saw the property. But as soon as we found that out, we quickly went under contract. So I will say, for anybody who does glamping will tell you the hardest part is getting the property zoned and switched to what you want, because the specifics of what you need are a little bit different from other campgrounds, and just kind of the structure of how we're laid out is a little bit different, and so that can make it a little bit harder. But yeah, like I said, we tried this 5 times, and zoning was the hardest part. And for us, as we were thinking about, the business launch, we said, well, frankly, if we know that's the biggest challenge and that's sort of the upfront challenge, for us, we kind of saw that as a benefit, because if we fail, well, then we failed at the very beginning, and we're not going to burn 2 or 3 years of our lives on this and then find out this problem way down the line. It's basically, if we don't get through it up front, then we won't get through it, and we'll, I'll go back to working a desk job and being way more sad.
So I think what Sam is saying is, if you want to start a glamping business, there's a tiny town in Michigan that's got land available, and
everybody come to us. Yeah, I shouldn't have said that, but whatever.
So how did you decide to, Sam, as an entrepreneur, how did you decide to get into the glamping side of it versus a campground or an RV only, or all the other options that were available to you?
Yeah, so this actually started, so before I operated a glamping business, I was a venture capitalist, of all things, if you can believe that. And at one point, I had quit my job temporarily and did a 6-month road trip camping my way across the country, which was awesome. And I saw a bunch of different kind of versions and flavors of this, which were all really neat and seemed like an awesome product, but I just didn't realize those were a business. And then one day I stumbled on Collective Retreats and Under Canvas, and they looked like awesome companies that were doing really well. And we just kind of said, at the time, there weren't that many, this would have been 4 years ago. So at the time, there weren't that many glamping businesses out there, and it seemed like a very underpenetrated market. Again, the theme here is hindsight is 2020. If we had sprinted then, that would have been the case. Now, the town we're in now is about to have 3 glamping resorts, potentially a 4th. So it's getting very crowded now.
20 now, Sam. 20 now.
Yeah.
They're all watching.
Yeah.
Zoning?
Yeah, exactly. But when we were starting this, it just felt like there are 2 big companies, maybe 3, depending on how you consider, glamping, intense at least. But each of them only had, 5 or 6 locations. And so it felt like there was a lot of room to grow here. And I do think that's still the case, but I will say, warn anybody trying to come into it, every year more folks like us are joining and starting locations. And so I bet this will be a pretty crowded space soon. But for now, there's still some room to grow.
Hey, Sam, I'm curious, as far as the septic system and requirements like that, what's the difference between a pure glamping resort and what you'd need to put in for a campground or trailer resort?
Yeah, so it depends, in the U.S. at least, it depends state to state. So every state and sometimes local counties have their own septic requirements for campgrounds. Ours is regulated at the state level by Michigan, and Michigan just has blanket. They consider us rustic just because there's no toilets on the tent itself. And so for those, they just have a blanket 75 gallons per day per site septic rule, which I know is different from their requirements for a full hookup. But we don't have trailers. I just don't know that number off the top of my head. But yeah, so for us, we just had to build a giant drain field.
75 gallons.
75 gallons per day is insane. If anybody from Eagle in Michigan is listening, you should change that rule because it's ridiculous. That's like 6 showers per tent per day, which we don't get. But what are you going to do? So we work a little bit on that. So we work with the state, and they've kind of told us, look, if you do measurements and you can kind of show your septic usage annually compared against your occupancy, if you've got good data there, we might ease up on that. So we've installed kind of water saving solutions, pull chain, showers, things like that, and then just kind of a meter on our septic system in the hopes that, in a couple of years, if things are going well, we want to expand past our current septic capacity, we might be able to say to them, hey, look, we're not using half of what you've sized for. Can we go up a little bit? But that hasn't happened yet, so we're crossing our fingers.
It's great to hear they're willing to be flexible. That's not always the case.
Well, that's what they said on the phone. We'll see what happens when push comes to shove, but that's what we're hoping.
Awesome. Well, Sam, feel free to hang out with us. I think we want to pivot here we got a lot of guests here we want to cover, but feel free to hang out with us. And if you want to insert yourself into any of the other conversations here, please absolutely do so. It's kind of an open discussion format. So maybe we'll start with Patrice and Kevin here. Patrice and Kevin are, again, the hosts of Are We There Yet on the Discovery Channel. Patrice and Kevin, do you just want to tell us a little bit about your show, how you got started, how you got into it, kind of the process?
Sure. Yeah.
Well, I spent the last 22 years producing a fishing show, believe it or not, on Discovery Channel and others. And then the pandemic hit. And we couldn't go out fishing. They closed down all the ramps. And so Patrice and I started thinking to ourselves, what can we do if this business doesn't continue? So, and we had just thought of all with the pandemic, the RVs were going crazy. And so we went ahead and started this show. We own the show. Discovery does not own it, so we own it, so we're able to do some things and have sponsors and partners and things like that. So it allows us to do a lot more editorial content and engage the fans a lot more. So it's really kind of a fun break from fishing.
We've always been RVers. When we did the fishing show, we traveled from Texas all the way up to Maryland. We were a saltwater fishing show, and we did trade shows and boat shows, and we hitched up our trade show booth behind the RV. It was something that we did because we were always on the road. I wanted to control our food and, have our own sheets and nobody else touches the remote and, just be able to control our world. And so we've always loved RVing. We've always loved hiking. We love state parks and national parks in the off time. So this was kind of a natural transition. We were at a trade show for the fishing show, and we were sitting in the broker's booth for Discovery, And all of a sudden this one goes, what do you think about an RV show? And I didn't even know he was going to say any of this. We, hadn't really even gotten that serious about it. And they said, yeah, give us a pilot and we'd love it. So we spent the next 6 months.
Yeah.
During the pandemic, we were able to go up to Shenandoah and film some stuff to get our pilot put together, and they loved it. They loved it right away. So normally a season is 13 episodes, but our first season was 6 episodes because of the pandemic. And so I can't believe we're already on episode number 4, going into number 5. It went by really fast, so we're working on season 2 already.
What, if I can ask, is it kind of a comedy thing, or is it an education thing, or is it just look what's out there? What's kind of the content, if I can ask?
The content is just RVers, 2 RVers. We have another couple that he was a former park ranger in the Grand Canyon, and we met them through our fishing life. They also meet up with us on the road as well. But it's really just where we can go with an RV, what we can do with an RV, camping, campgrounds. We really love to tell the story of all this beautiful land has been set aside for Americans to go see and experience and take care of and be stewards of. Also telling small American business stories. This one coming up this week, we go back to Cocoa Beach where he grew up, and we get to meet a family that's 4th generation shrimpers who actually put shrimp on our plates. And so it's really just celebrating those stories and all the hidden gem places in America. I mean, we are kind of funny. I'm funny. But it's not a comedy show. It's more of a see America.
Yeah, Shane, it's a little entertainment and education both, but really it's what we did the first season for, was to kind of test the market and see what the market wants. I mean, we found out they want more camping. We were doing more events and activities and things, and we found that we're going to add more camping into the second season. So really this first season was to try it out, kind of figure out the playing field, meet all the players. Like we said, we talked to some ad agencies from the fishing show, and Nebraska purchased an episode, so we got to tell Patrice's story, where she was from, which was fantastic. Then the Space Coast bought an episode for me to tell my story. We went to the Grand Canyon to tell Ranger Dave, that's our other partner. So it was really nice to start the first season telling our stories, telling our background, but also getting input from our viewers of what they're looking for in the TV show. There's really not any entertainment / informational, and certainly produced at such a high level. We did all the editing, all the music here in-house at our studio. We're here at our RV right now at our home base in Tampa. So it's just something we enjoy doing, and certainly as we start the second season and sell in the second season, we've got so many ideas and so many people want us to come to their town or their state or their community. So that's certainly where we're at right now with the show.
Great. Do you have RV manufacturers asking you to drive their units instead?
They're not. Nobody's banging down the door because they don't have to. I mean, sales were up incredible last year. We went to the Tampa RV Super Show last week, and we went in on Industry Day, and we did finally get to meet with some of the marketing teams of the manufacturers, all of which loved the show, had seen it, loved the concept, loved the idea of retaining those newbies. So many new people bought an RV during the pandemic, and I would venture to say it's not for everybody, and they may not keep that RV, but I would love to motivate them with our show and how to retain those people and keep that generation going with RVing. And really, I'm big on etiquette too, in camping, in hiking, leave no trace, just be respectful. I want to use this, pun intended, as a vehicle to really, teach people how to have fun, but also be respectful.
Yeah, I love that. It's definitely a valuable asset to bring, especially, like you said, in this environment where there's so many individuals fresh to the market and experiencing it for the first time.
Yeah.
I think because there's so many new RVers out there, they love to see pictures of where they can go. So if
Yeah.
you're going to new places and they see this beauty, right? They're all excited. Man, let's go, right?
Right.
So everybody's very visual, and you start to get some ideas on where you can go when you actually see some of the sites.
And Shane, certainly I'm going to add to that. We did a show in Nebraska, and the name of the episode is Not Just Cows and Corn, because we ended the show at 4,000 feet at Chadron State Park in Nebraska, and every comment on social media was, I had no idea that was in Nebraska. So certainly having an impact for the Nebraska Game and Parks, our client, there's going to be a lot of people checking out Chadron State Park, and we urge everybody to check it out because the buttes, the park was super clean. I mean, it was just a really cool place. But to be able to show that, what hasn't been seen before, we went to the Grand Canyon. Everybody's seen it, but everybody said that our take on the Grand Canyon was very RV-centric. We stayed at Desert View, which was a dry camping one night. We went to Trailer Village, which has full hookup. And Shane, sorry to say, or Sam, sorry to say, but we were glamping. We had a carpet and we had TVs. That's glamping RV style. So
I forgive you.
But that's really what we're looking for, is to show people Americana, things that you wouldn't see that all of us in RVs can go to, whether we have an extra vehicle or whether we have electric bikes. We love our electric bikes. We did the electric bikes in the Grand Canyon and rode the entire 8 miles out to Hermit's Rest on bikes, and it just was probably the best time I've had at a national park, was not having to get on the shuttle system or deal. And again, during the pandemic, it really helped out because people were a little sketchy and wearing masks and things like that. So we didn't want to wear masks on the show, and so being apart from them was really well. So it was just really neat to check out some of the state parks and national parks.
I think that's really important for when you talk about first-time RVers and people get their RV and they tend to go to all of the traditional spots, right, that they know of, and they're very crowded and it's difficult to get a campsite. And so all of those issues come up, and it may sort of impact their initial experience. But I think a show like yours, it sounds fun because you're showing, some different areas, and maybe you'll want to come up to Canada one day, but showcase some areas where, what people can do that's not just sort of the traditional, typical experience.
Well, it's interesting you said that, Eleanor. We had originally started with going to national parks because we thought, these big national parks, and then we realized, wow, they're crowded. Wow, we can't fly our drone. Wow, we can't. There's so much permitting issues. So we really have changed the focus for the second season and are focusing on state parks, really unknown parks that really need the marketing. The national parks, I think Yellowstone had the biggest attendance in their history. They don't need more people.
Yeah.
So really we're looking for the other parks, like a Custer State Park or a Wind Cave National Park that doesn't get seen a lot, so that we can show people that there's other things except the big 10 or 20 that are out there.
Well, the RV campgrounds, a lot of these people, like you had said, I think it was Shane, don't know where to go and don't know what to do. So showing off some of the RV campgrounds, some of them can be scary if you don't know where you're going. And so being able to highlight those and little off the beaten path places to see, and bringing people, get off the interstate just a little bit. You don't have to go through Nebraska and I-80. You can get off and go through the sand hills and go see some of the most beautiful stuff just a little bit off the interstate. Sam, I know you're right up Lake Michigan. We had done Indiana sand dunes, but we did the state park side, which was beautiful. Knowing that you were right up there, if you had room for us, I know you're all glad.
Oh, missed opportunity. Next time. Y'all are in the area. We'd love to have you.
Yeah, showing off those little mom and pop campgrounds, RV campgrounds, and helping them, do well as well.
So what does the future hold for your show? Where do you go in season 2? What are you going to change, I guess, is my real question, right? If anything.
Yeah, specifically, we are going to change the format to really just highlight state parks and local flavors. And small American business highlight. Really tell a story of why that business is doing well in that area. We are talking to several different tourism boards right now to kind of plan out our route. We have a handful of, each of us have our list of, okay, I would love to do this, but, it's budgeting right now. Talking to the manufacturers, talking to the dealerships, raising the funds right now for our season. Our crew is ready to go. We're ready to go. We've just got to get the budget put together, and then once the weather is nicer in the rest of the country, we'll hit the road maybe end of April, beginning of May, to film for season 2.
Awesome. I see Phil over there nodding his head, and I know he was telling us before the show that his wife is from Nebraska. Phil, we're going to talk about NTP Stag, where you're at, in a second, and so I want to welcome you onto the show here. I know you've been listening in the background, but have you ever been to the state park that they were talking about in Nebraska? Is my opening question.
Not the Shadron State Park, but there are a number of state parks in Nebraska that are great. There's some around Lincoln. I can't remember the name of it right off the top of my head. Maybe you guys remember.
Flat River.
Yeah, yep. And then I've also done canoe trips on the Niobrara River, which is another hidden gem close to the South Dakota state line. And you're right, Nebraska's full of surprises, that's for sure.
Yeah.
So what does NTP Stag look like, Phil? You're sitting here live with us, right?
Right. Well, I am in Las Vegas, Nevada this week for NTP Stag. And for those of you that don't know, NTP Stag is one of the nation's largest distributors of aftermarket products. So when you go into an RV dealership and you go into that parts store, distributors a lot of the time are supplying all those parts to the dealerships. And so at this show, you're seeing everything from towing systems to braking systems, battery systems, even plug-ins and things like that, and then air conditioners. So it's big business to supply RV parts and accessories. And certainly, if you look at a dealer's overall business model, for a lot of dealers, the fixed operations, service, parts, warranty, all that's a big slice of the pie for a dealer's overall revenue stream.
So what is go ahead, Shane, please.
No, I was wondering, Phil, what are the guys saying about supply chain? Are they starting to build up their inventory, or?
Well, one of the interesting things here has been that everybody is being very honest about where the kinks in the supply chain are, and certainly we're still working through some of it. I will say it's getting better. I saw some data yesterday about out of stock parts coming down a bit, so I would expect through spring and summer we'll see improvements. And I know it's frustrating for RVers out there right now if they can't get their air conditioner fixed or their furnace fixed, but I can tell you that both the distributors and the suppliers are doing as much as they can to make sure that those trip stopper issues are being addressed. A piece of molding inside the RV or whatever, yeah, that's an annoyance, and I get that. But what the dealers and the suppliers are focusing on is those trip stoppers so that we can get people back on the road to enjoy their RV.
So what does NTP Stag look like from an attendance perspective? You talked about there's a lot of dealers there and things were going well, right?
Right. I heard there's about 700 dealers here. That's pretty close to their pre-pandemic show levels. So they're very pleased. The show floor is just full of some great new innovative products, a lot of battery cell technology, new ways to make the RV more comfortable as far as, with the HVAC systems and things like that. So, there's a lot of innovation, not only in today's RV units, but also on the aftermarket side, where people can improve their units or, fix stuff that breaks.
Awesome. I'll ask this question to Eleanore and Shane in a second, but to you first, Phil, what's on RVDA's mind as an organization right now at this time of year?
Well, right now, certainly, and Eleanore can speak for RVDA of Canada, but this repair issue is a big issue. I mean, we've talked about, there's a lot of new RVers coming in, and they're expecting kind of a car-like experience when their RV breaks. Right now, we need to do a better job of shortening what we're calling repair event cycle time, the time where the person drops it off and picks it up. And we've got to make sure that we're looking at that, and that's a big issue right now among the dealers. I would also say, building inventory back. It's well documented that we had over 600,000 units shipped in 2021 in North America, but there's still some shelf space to fill on dealer lots, and especially in the entry level and mid level travel trailers and motorized products. The manufacturers will be still building at a very high clip, I think, over the next few months.
Eleanore, would you echo that up here in
Yeah,
Canada?
I would say, a lot of it is very similar. Our dealers are trying to refill and restock their inventory. It is starting to trickle in. But one thing they're learning is that they're having to sell a little bit differently as well. So it used to be, you'd had all of your inventory on the floor by now. But now working with consumers to almost pre-order units to get, to sell a little bit differently from online to, selling brochures and through videos. So that's kind of an issue. Obviously the repair side, yes, very important. We have the same need to improve repair event cycle time so that consumers can get out there and go RVing as soon as possible. It's interesting for us, most of the retail, many of the retail shows, not the CRVA show with Shane, but many of the retail shows have been canceled. So again, it's, how to get that excitement going for consumers to ensure that, they get to dealerships. So we're working really, really hard with our partner Go RV in Canada to ensure that we sort of drive traffic at this point in time in the year to dealerships. And then the other big issue for us as well, or the dealer body, as we're hearing, is personnel. It was always, skilled labor, the technicians to fix the RVs, but it is personnel in all areas. And it's not unique to the RV industry, but just finding workers that are able to be, reliable and can work at the dealership. So we're helping to try to assist our members with those issues through different endeavors in terms of recruitment and just elevating the career paths available in the RV industry.
Phil, you look like you were nodding and you agree with Eleanor with the technician issue.
Oh, absolutely. And, I think one of the big advances over the last several years has been the RV Technical Institute that is open now in Elkhart. And they're using kind of a hub and spoke model. They're setting up authorized learning partners all over the country. And so there's a real effort.
Oh, no.
Whoop, did we lose Phil?
Security.
All right. Well,
what happened in Vegas stays in Vegas.
He's back.
I'm back. I saw that.
Yeah.
Anyway, I was just talking about the RV Technical Institute. Yeah.
Yep, we heard most of it. So we weren't sure how long you were going to be gone, but it was pretty quick. So,
Okay.
Shane, same question to you, I guess, from the Canadian Recreational Vehicle Association side of things, and then if you want to touch briefly on the Toronto show that's coming up too.
Yeah, thanks, Brian. Yeah, I'll echo, Eleanor's concerns. As an industry, we're no different. I sit on a lot of tourism calls, and the tourism and hospitality industry is just begging for people. And you name what industry, they're all short and they're all looking for people. So my feeling is the RV industry has to really get themselves out there and attract people looking for maybe something different. It's definitely secure right now just because of, the way the shipments go. So it's a secure job. It's a secure career. And I think we need to promote ourselves to attract new workers because there's going to be a lot of competition for employees out there, no matter where you go. But but as far as the show, it just different provinces up here have had different COVID mandates. Some open and close differently, and it's not a perfect world, but Ontario is opening up enough with enough of an advance notice here for us to have our Toronto Spring Camping and RV show at the beginning of March. Not everybody feels comfortable with the timing, but we think that we can do it safely, and we're hearing that consumers just want this all to be over with, and they want to start thinking about camping, start thinking about the season, and just be frankly done with all the lockdowns and everything. So we're certainly hopeful that that people come out and enjoy themselves.
So Patrice and Kevin, I want to throw it back to you for a second. From a consumer perspective, right? I mean, obviously you do your show, but you're traveling around and you're consuming at national parks and state parks and things like that. And you were just at the Florida RV show. How does this impact your perception of restrictions, lockdowns, of the shows, of the attendance that you're seeing, of all those kinds of things? What goes through your mind?
I agree with Shane. One of my big things is the RV industry needs to kind of get, they've been very conservative for years, and I think we need to really get out and engage this new market, all these new customers we have. So something like that we're doing, get behind something like this so that, we can, like Patrice said, continue educating people so we don't lose people. It's one of those things, the trade show was fantastic. They had set some of the first day records, I think, of attendance, and it was very well. I think people are dying to get out and get back to camping.
I think it's also, we do live in Florida, and we have, I will say we're lucky to live in Florida in that a lot of the restrictions and things have been lifted. We find that we want to get back to life, but RVing, in my opinion, is a safe way to do that. And I think that's a great message, is that you can still go and do and see and still control your environment. Years ago, and why I wanted to control my food back in 2005 is I was diagnosed with thyroid cancer, and it was something very important to me at that time that I wanted to control my environment, and that was also contributed to why we bought an RV and why we're RVers, aside from the fact that I hate to fly. So I think it's a good message to people out there that you can go and see America and Canada and go do and live your life and still be in control and be safe. So I think, that would be the message. And I think that's what we need, help on getting that message out. We're a great platform for it.
So we've got obviously Phil and Eleanore and Shane all on here from the RV industry in general, right? Both Canada and the United States. I know your probably exposure so far has been limited to the industry itself versus the consumer side of things, right? But what is do you have a perception? Have you come across it enough to form an opinion of how the RV industry is impacting your travels and your goals and your show?
I don't think they're there yet, and this is my opinion. I don't think the RV industry is caught up to the popularity of everything, like Phil was saying, in terms of service and technicians, and now we have so many RVs out there. The consumer base is there, and you've got hungry, willing people to go do, but you don't have the people to get you on the road back and fixed up. For example, we did purchase this RV. We did not have a refrigerator for 3/4 of our season. We lived out of two little portable freezer refrigerators, and somebody who likes to cook, it was not fun. So because the part was not there, and then the service, and then booking our time to get in, and then the turnover in technicians. So it's encouraging to know that there is a technician school that's going in. I think we need to encourage more trade, careers for our kids, really getting people into this, because this is an industry that's not going to go anywhere. It's growing consumer-wise. I think the industry needs to catch up with the popularity and the infrastructure.
So a question for you, Phil, and maybe a little bit of a hard one, but I'll try to be a softball a little bit. When you talk about the supply chain issues, we obviously know this is definitely not an RV industry problem. This is a worldwide, every industry, grocery, whatever problem, right? Are there ways that you've heard discussed or that things that are being planned out to avoid a similar situation like this happening in the future? Obviously, we can't control pandemics and things like that, but.
Right. Well, we kind of had a double whammy because we had all this demand, right? 600,000 units in 2022 or 2021 last year. We've never seen that kind of number before. So you're building a lot of units. They need refrigerators, right? Then you have refrigerators breaking, so they need parts. And so what I think you're going to see different types of systems put in place so that not only are the suppliers building refrigerators to put in new units, but they're also at the same time saying, okay, but these parts are not going to go into new units. These are for our aftermarket customers, right? Okay. So you've got two buckets of parts to use versus, oh, everything's got to go for production or whatever. So I think those are the kind of things that the suppliers and the manufacturers will be working on moving forward. Just modernizing their systems and like you say, catching up with that installed base that we've got out there right now.
Well, that's really great.
Oh, sorry, Brian.
Oh, go ahead, Cara, please.
I was just going to ask if anybody's tracking specifics about what the impact of this supply chain issue is having on the used market.
Well, SSI, who does the retail sales, is finally figured out a way to track used sales in the U.S. And Eleanor, I don't know if they're doing it in Canada as well, but I haven't seen the 2021 numbers, but the 2020 numbers, there were like 750,000 used units changed hands, right? So some of those are sold through the dealer, but a lot of them are consumer to consumer sales, right? Private sales. And those, I'm biased. I work for dealers, but our studies show that the most dissatisfied RV owners are those who buy private sale because the unit hasn't been checked out. It may not even be what's represented. So, we encourage people to, even if they do a private sale buy, to go to the dealer and get it checked out. Because, certainly the used market is growing along with the new sales.
Well, I think that holds true probably, Phil, outside of the RV industry too. I would imagine if you did a satisfaction survey, and they probably exist on the auto industry, that more people are unhappy buying their car from the neighbor down the street than they would be a dealer too. Right. So, yeah. But it's good to see that you guys are pivoting and adapting and changing and trying to create some solutions to this, to these problems so that they don't happen again. So what else do we got to talk about, Cara? I know you're on a couple boards there in Alberta who had planned shows. They had to be canceled, unfortunately. But what's going on, just because you sit on those boards, what's going on in your mind as far as the RV industry goes, Cara?
Yeah, we have seen our RV show events here in Alberta. The Calgary and Edmonton RV shows were unfortunately canceled just because of increased restrictions again here, specific to capacities and things like that impacted our ability to have a show that would be viable, frankly. And so, there's lots of factors that are going into that, but I really love to see RVDA of Alberta is really pivoting in terms of their strategic planning around, still drumming up exposure and interest in the RV camping lifestyle at that time of the year where people are just kind of really getting eager to get out and start booking their trips and all of those things. So actually I just before this, I had a call with their team and we're working on some cool strategies to create content specifically in some of our campgrounds and we're doing some cool fun events leading up to our RV Learning Weekend, which is always awesome here in Alberta. So I think, the appetite to get out and camp on the consumer end is as good as ever, and that's great to see. And it will remain to be seen if we can rise to the challenge and make sure we have enough campsites and all of those things that are, we have hurdles around reservation systems and some of those websites struggling to keep up with demand and stuff. So new strategies are coming out with that stuff. We're seeing rolling reservation blocks launched already, whereas normally they would have been, you have to wait until March to start booking for your summer plans. And so that really impacts the site traffic and things like that. So I think from various angles and from various groups, this stuff is trying to be addressed to make sure that we are keeping our guests satisfied and happy and really working hard to avoid any of that disenchantment that comes with things like really busy public parks. We'll be doing some video content that showcases some of our public parks that are a bit less traveled and a bit off the beaten path. We are really pushing for our private campgrounds to get more exposure to them. They're certainly less known, I think, in this province than our provincial and federal parks can be. So lots of exposure for those will help, I think, move some of that traffic that typically visits a public park into some of our private smaller campgrounds, which I love to see and I think would be great for everybody. So lots of stuff happening.
You bring up a couple interesting points. Sorry, Eleanor, did you want to say something?
Well, I was just going to say, the one thing that in terms of, with the shows being canceled in Alberta and the RVDA of Alberta, like Cara just said, pivoting, to put on, some events that will lead up to their consumer education. And a few of the provinces do have these types of learning weekends where where RVers, consumers come and there are suppliers that are there, or dealers, the campgrounds that sort of that teach and help assist in some of that consumer education. And while some of the shows have been canceled, there's a great opportunity because we know at the shows, most of them do have consumer education as well. So now there's been a great opportunity to try to carry that online and have that consumer education, starting in February and leading up to April, May, so that we keep in touch with those consumers. So I think there's some great opportunities, even though, you have to step back in one area, but just to develop that sort of online presence for consumers. So I'm excited to see what's going to be happening in some of the provinces.
Me too. I think it's very similar to you were mentioning earlier with the dealers really pivoting in terms of sales strategies and things like that. In 2021, I bought a vehicle for the first time in my life without ever seeing it in person beforehand because of supply chain issues. They showed me a video and we did like a video live 360 tour, and I paid a whole bunch of money without ever seeing this in person. And I think more and more consumers are going to be willing and open to do that. And I'm sure, I am aware that the dealers are doing a lot of this great stuff too, where they delivered right to my door and offered this great level of customer service that really made that experience really positive for me when I was quite nervous about it. Yeah. So those shifts, I think, are necessary, and there's lots of people with a ton of ingenuity in our industry addressing them and finding ways to get around it.
So I want to toss out an open-ended question, right? I'm obviously much more familiar with the campground industry, private campgrounds. I've been working it for over a decade than I am with the RV industry. It's kind of something I'm learning, as Phil and I have discussed, kind of my ignorance with NTB SAG and a bunch of other things. So my question though is since this is our first RV industry show, we obviously are broadcasting to a lot of campground owners and kind of growing that RV industry audience. How does all this tie together from a RVDA perspective, from a CRVA perspective, from a sitting on a board like Cara does perspective, or even from an RV show perspective on Discovery Channel? How does all that tie together? Where do the lines blur? How do what goes through RVDA's mind when it comes to the consumer and to the industry and to all the other facets, site availability that we were talking about, that impact everything that we all do? Just toss it out to anybody who wants to take it.
I'll just comment, Brian. We're all in this together, and the dealers, the manufacturers of campgrounds, and obviously our consumers. And I feel that expectations, especially today, need to be conveyed. So there's no surprises, and that we lose. I think I feel like this. Tell people the way what to expect, and you may lose one or two consumers who say, I don't like that. But if you don't tell them, and they buy and they get surprised, and then you lose 5 or 6 or 7, then then you have a problem. So, as an industry, I think we communicate with each other very well. Hopefully, that gets down to the consumer, so they understand and they can appreciate our what's going on, and they're not going to be surprised later on. I think there's always room for improvement in that.
Right. I would
I
also
would say,
say
Shane,
that
we always talk about.
I'm sorry. Go ahead. I was just going to say
go
Phil
ahead,
or
Phil.
Eleanor, and you both talked.
Go ahead, Eleanor. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Phil.
No, I was just going to say I think we're going
Okay.
to have to continue to work together because we've got a lot of product innovation coming. I mean, you saw that at Florida RV Super Show with some major announcements from Thor and Winnebago on electric vehicles. But what's going to start showing up first at campgrounds are electric vehicles, the Ford Lightning, the Rivians. So, that's going to be very important for the two industries to talk to each other to make sure that we have, like Shane was saying, we have the expectation there that they understand how these these new technologies are going to function at the campground, and what we need to do as an industry to make sure that these new technologies work and people can enjoy the traditional experience that they've come to expect.
Yeah, and so just to carry on Phil's point is, it's really being together. And I would, if I were a campground owner, and we know the dealers, but really to work closely with your dealers and other people in the industry, because there's information that we could be supplying or letting the campground operators know this is what's coming down and this is what you should be looking for, and just to make sure that they're aware of the trends and opportunities that exist for them. So I would just encourage encourage the campgrounds to get to know your local dealers, work together, because we are all in it together, and that will ultimately make sure that consumers have a better experience.
I think from an entertainment standpoint, for us, we're the perfect mouthpiece for all the messages. Our number one goal is to entertain, motivate, and inspire people to go out and see their country, their states, in RVs. But we want you to have fun. So at consumer shows or dealer events, kind of breaking out of the norm of just a standard seminar in a little off room, maybe bringing that seminar in the booth with the RVs there and doing it hands-on, or, I don't know, you're the entertainment guru in terms of shaking it up a little bit to get your message across in a fun way.
Yeah, we've got to try more what we call realistic scenario type education, as opposed to what I call the circus act, entertainment. It's each dealership or each manufacturer can add to their booths with entertaining, with education, with more stuff that feels natural. I found that when we went to the RV Super Show in Tampa that it was very much a classroom setting, 4 walls, seats.
Away from all the product.
Yeah, and I wait for everybody wants to be around the product and talk the product. And so certainly, like Eleanor said, getting with your dealerships from the campgrounds, talking to dealerships, go even further. Go to the Economic Development Council. Go to the tourism boards. Let them know that there's a show out there that can come and stay at your park and promote the park. We're all about small parks when we're going to our destinations. It's what we prefer. We like to meet people. So certainly on our way out to, say, the Southwest or up even to the Northeast, we need stops all along the way to get there. So finding those parks for us, I don't know every park, so certainly reaching out to us to let us know, hey, you're out there, come stay at our place, and that kind of thing. So reach out, like you said, communicate.
Yeah, and dealerships, bringing those educators, bringing those the entertainment and the experts on the dealership lot, because your product is right there. And if you're teaching people, they're more receptive when they're being entertained. And if you're right there, the product's right there. I think that's an easier. We came from the same formula on the boat and marine side of things for 21 years. We were also had our own rods, reels, line, and lure, at a big box retailer here in the United States, and we did appearances inside that and did fishing seminars. As soon as we were done, they bought rods, reels, line. We had the Florida Fish and Wildlife there. We had the Texas Fish and Wildlife people there. Experts that could always teach something different, whether it be, an expert on, the chassis or something, but little quick fixes that people can do themselves, little hacks that they can do themselves to get them back on the road. But doing that either in the show booth, in the dealership, on the campground, or in the dealer itself.
All right. Well, I don't know how feasible that is because I know nothing about the RV industry at all. But Shane and Eleanor, you're welcome to comment if you want.
Well, no, I think those are all great points for sure. It's I like the entertainment component and, and education. I mean, as an association, that is one of our primary goals. I mean, we do work towards educating the dealers, but there are lots of opportunities for educating consumers as well. So thank you for that feedback, and we'll pass it on to our different dealers and different show promoters. And I was going to say, if you do have any promotional material, for the show itself, we'd be happy to send it out to our membership as well.
Oh, fantastic! Thank you. Yes.
All right. Well, we seem to have lost Phil, who was at NTB Stag, which is fine. We really appreciate him staying on as long as he did in the midst of a live show. We're getting ready to wrap up here, though. So, Cara, any final thoughts?
No, I just want to thank everybody for their time. I know, again, that famous word, the big word. We seem to do that a lot around here these last couple of years, I think. But I appreciate your time, and I'm excited to see where this conversation goes as 2022 kind of enters into camping season, and we start seeing RV shipments and things picking back up again. I know a couple of the dealers, when we were talking about canceling the Alberta shows, were joking about how it's totally fine because they have a wait list and all the inventory they had purchased is basically sold anyway. So if that's an indication of how things are going to go, I think it's going to be another interesting year, and I'm super excited to walk through it with everybody. We have some great industry stuff coming up too that's super exciting. Obviously, CCRVC is doing our Outdoor Hospitality Conference and Expo in March. Register for that if you haven't yet. Vendors, suppliers, all those people, contact me, get involved. We are excited to roll that out again. So there's lots of stuff to look forward to, and I think we're going to be in the thick of it before we know it here. So I look forward to our next conversation specific to this stuff.
Awesome. Sam, I want to touch on you just real briefly. Obviously, this is a same and both a different and a same demographic, right? People that glamp obviously enjoy the outdoors, and so I think there's a lot of crossover there. So what are you looking forward to in 2022?
Oh gosh, I mean, just getting more people outside. I mean, I'd be curious to hear what everybody. I guess we're out of time here, so I can't even ask this question. But would just be curious how the RV industry thinks about getting new folks. There's a lot of more interest today from people who've never RV'd before, never camped before, and all of a sudden, the rise of outdoorsy and cruise and all of those clearly is I don't know if it's contributing to this or it's being lifted by this, but as we think about our next 12 months, it's just helping more people who've never slept outside sleep outside. So it's really great to hear that you guys are having all this demand, and sounds like the message is getting out there for the RV industry as a whole. So we're excited to piggyback on that, and hopefully you guys help us get some more people out there.
Yeah, I think we're very intertwined and very interreliant on one another. Like you said, your customers often transition into RVers, and that's obviously valuable market for us. And so all those partnerships and good relationships across all those barriers for sure.
Yeah.
Well, maybe that's a topic we can touch on briefly next month when we have Shane, Phil, and Eleanore back on the show, just kind of briefly about the changing technology in RV rentals and outdoorsy and how, the industry is viewing and seeing those different types of things. But we do have to cut it short for now. I know especially Phil's got to get back to this amazing trade show. I wish I was in Vegas right now. But thank you so much for joining us. Really appreciate it. Again, kind of a fourth week. We're going to do an RV industry outdoor rec show and maybe add a few more guests here in the mix with Eleanore, Shane, and Phil. But really appreciate all three of them joining us here again. Thanks again to Cara, as always, for joining me as a co-host. We'll have Angela back next week. Sam from stayoffmap.com, right?
That's right.
Beautiful camping resort in Michigan. Maybe you'll see more of those across the country as Sam gets more people. If you know of a place that doesn't have zoning, email
or with zoning. Yeah, we can't. That's too easy. We can't get that one again, I don't think.
All right. And then, of course, thank you, Patrice and Kevin, for joining us. We wish you all the best on your RV There Yet show on Discovery Channel. When can they watch? Where can they watch?
Saturday mornings at 8 a.m. on Discovery, and then it'll re-air on Motor Trend in March 13th.
You can watch it online. Go to Facebook, YouTube, just search RV There Yet TV or go to RVThereYetTV.com. It's out there for everybody to watch. Give us your comments. Let us know. We're getting ready for season 2 right now.
Awesome. Well, thank you again, everybody. We'll see you next week. Take care.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thanks for watching this episode of MC Fireside Chats, hosted by Brian Searl and Cara Csizmadia. Have a suggestion for a future show or want to see your campground or company as part of an episode? Email us at hello@moderncampground.com. Join us next week for another episode. And don't miss the latest outdoor hospitality news and commentary from around the world at moderncampground.com.